Forget about Russia's offense against Ukraine. Did you notice another Russian neighbor, Belarus, just got usurped by Russia? If not, then watch this video and know how Russia is all set to eat up not one but two nations altogether without letting the world know all about it. Hi and welcome. You're watching TFI Global, the foreign affairs and geopolitical analysis arm of the TFI Media Group. And I am your host Piyush. In this video, I will tell you how Putin conquered Belarus without firing a single shot. Let's begin. The West is too preoccupied with Ukraine these days. The Russian military is hounding the US-led Eastern European nation, and Kyiv could be toppled by Moscow any time now. In this Ukraine-Russia crisis, the indispensable role of Russia's neighbor Belarus cannot be given a miss. Today, Belarus is inundated with Russian military equipment and defense forces. Russia amassed nearly 30,000 troops in Belarus before ordering an invasion of Kyiv. You may notice Russia has cunningly tightened its grip over Belarus even as the winds of war begin blowing in Ukraine. The developments that occurred over the past few months suggest Russia may have already politically annexed Belarus before undertaking the Ukrainian adventure. And if everything goes as planned, Minsk may also fall in Russia's hands along with Kyiv after the Ukraine crisis is over. It is interesting to note that Belarus had proposed some radical changes to its constitution last December, which can serve as a prelude to the complete reunification of Belarus with Russia. The proposed changes effectively erase the country's nuclear-free status and neutrality. The new military doctrine, which is yet to be made public, would enable further integration between the militaries of Belarus and Russia. Adding to that, new changes will also guarantee unbridled powers to President Alexander Lukashenko. The subservient president is doing everything to please Putin. The Belarusian military is fighting along with Russian military as Minsk looks ready to brave Western sanctions. Lukashenko last year even suggested Russia deploy its nuclear weapons on Belarusian soil, and the proposed changes in its constitution will pave the way for the same. It looks like Minsk is already being operated by Russian masters from Moscow. But why does Lukashenko have to follow Putin's diktats? The reason is simple. Lukashenko loves his share like any other political leader, and he just can't survive without Russian auspices. Lukashenko weathered the biggest political crisis of his presidency last year. Military aid from Russia was brought in that literally rescued Lukashenko's fortunes. Then, miraculously, he won the August presidential elections and his regime stayed afloat. No prizes for guessing Putin had just saved his chair. One thing that keeps Lukashenko clung to his chair is generosity being showered upon him by Vladimir Putin. So it would be suicidal for him to reject Putin's military offense against Ukraine. As fantastical it may sound, Lukashenko had himself agreed to merge his nation with Russia when his presidency was faced with seemingly unpregnable challenges. The union of Belarus and Russia is an asset that should be preserved, augmented, and passed on to future generations. The Belarusian president was heard saying this last year. Even in the late 90s, Lukashenko and the then Russian president Boris Yeltsin had agreed to create a union state, a merger of Russia and Belarus. Lukashenko was hopeful of replacing Yeltsin as Russia's next president, but Lukashenko backtracked after Yeltsin chose Putin as his successor. 30 years down the line, Lukashenko is finding himself politically paralyzed by Russia. Russia has already annexed Belarus militarily and politically. And now, the economic annexation will also take place once the West announces sweeping sanctions on Belarus. Ukraine has served as a key market for Belarusian economy. Once Kyiv falls into Russia's hands and the West imposes sanctions on Belarus, Minsk would have no choice rather than intensify its economic and political cooperation with Moscow. So, the current crisis creates a golden opportunity for Russia to further subjugate Belarus and possibly annex it according to the stipulation of the Union state. And this annexation will take place right under NATO's nose without even Russia feeling the need to fire a single bullet.